Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Natalie White, and I am the Early Careers Manager at Irwin Mitchell. And thank you for joining us for our Developing Your Career webinar. It's great to see so many of you joining us virtually this afternoon. So in terms of our session today, it's going to be split into a number of different sessions. So firstly, we're going to have a short introduction to the firm from myself. If you weren't aware of us, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction in terms of what we do, our divisions, and also what we do outside of being able to deliver a successful service to our clients. Then we're going to follow on to a number of guest speakers who are going to join us today. So firstly, we're going to have advice and personal thoughts from current trainees, Darina and Curtis. We're then going to move on to two of our newly qualified solicitors from both our business and personal legal services, Hayan and Greg. And then finally, we're going to move on to one of our partners, Guy Darlaston, who is a partner in our workplace injury and illness team. And Guy will talk to us about his experience of development and his advice for those of you starting your career. All of the speakers will give you an insight into their career and their journey so far and the development that they've had at both Irwin Mitchell and any advice that they may have for you in your career. And then finally, we will finish off with a live Q&A panel with all of our colleagues from today. Some of you have already fed through some session questions to us, so thank you if you have done so already. We will answer those at that point of the session. But if you do have any as you go along that you think of, please feel free to pop these in the chat facility or the Q&A option, and we will make sure to address those as well as part of the Q&A session. Okay, so we will get started on the introduction to who we are. So as Irwin Mitchell, what we are legal and financial advisors based in 15 UK offices with approximately 3,000 employees across each of our offices. Usually we have around 50 trainees join us every year. So as you can see, when we have two cohorts in place, we have around 100 trainees across all of our offices. So a fantastic network of trainees to support. We are the 11th largest law firm in the UK, and we do have an international presence as members of First Law International. And we are what is known as a full service law firm. So this means that whatever our clients come to us, we can support them with their transactions. And we have two divisions as our business, our personal legal services and our business legal services. And I will come on in a moment to actually what we do within those areas and the different departments as part of that. We are made up a number of separate businesses which fall under the Irwin Mitchell umbrella. And that means that we can offer a broad range of experts to our clients, and we all have the same commitment in mind, which is to provide our clients an expert hand with a human touch. We were established in 1912, so we've helped over 1 million clients in our time since then. And for us, what we are very proud of is not being able to just successfully deliver to our clients, but also our culture within the organisation. And that involves not just diversity, but well-being and ensuring that we have an inclusive and supportive workplace for all of our colleagues. So when they come to work, they feel that they can bring their whole self to work. So you can see on there a couple of the things that we are proud of, being a top 25 law firm in the Stonewall Equality Index, UK's #1 law firm for female partners. We've won a number of diversity awards at the Signature Awards. And finally, as it says on there, we are a signatory of the Mindful Employee Charter. And that's because we have a real emphasis on well-being. For us, it's ensuring that all of our colleagues come to work and are able to be supported in what they do. Okay, so next slide, please. We're going to move on to what our approach is. So as part of ourselves, we have a very big pride on being able to understand people. We work with people on a day-to-day basis, not just our colleagues, but also with our clients. And we understand that everybody's situation is completely different, whether that's associated with their business needs or actually their personal needs. But regardless of whichever division a client comes in to work with, we follow what we call our 3 C's, which you can see on screen there: our clients, our communities, and our colleagues. So our clients, in what this means, we strive to make a real difference for every client and every business that we work with. Clients are our number one priority, and what we want to do is give them the best possible advice and support, as ensuring that that's at the forefront of everything that we do. We also have our communities, which is a key part to our business. We've got a long history of supporting local communities in which we operate and local to each of our offices. And being involved with the local community is a natural element of our day-to-day life at the firm. So that could be visiting clients at home, although not currently in the current situation, supporting local businesses, or also fundraising and supporting charities as part of our Charity of the Year initiatives at each of our offices. And then finally, our colleagues. We couldn't do what we do without our talented colleagues, so they are in a foundation to those 3 C pillars. So we work with a diverse range of clients and communities, and we want to celebrate the diversity amongst our colleagues too as well. And we'll talk about what we do to do that in a moment. And as I've mentioned before, we are passionate, and it's a number one item for us in ensuring that every colleague has a welcome and inclusive, supportive workplace when they come to work. And as you can see on there, everything that we do is underpinned by our values, which you can see on screen there. So that's our approach to how we work day to day across the firm. So I've referred to earlier, we have 2 divisions, our business legal services and our personal legal services. Our business legal services is a growing area of the firm, and we have an increasing number of global, national and regional companies that choose to work with us in a highly competitive market to support their businesses. In terms of the departments, you can see on screen, I'll just give you a short overview of each of the areas and what they encompass. So we have our banking and finance team, which provides advice to lenders, borrowers, intermediaries and other professional advisories on a wide variety of finance related issues. We have commercial, and our commercial lawyers provide legal documents, processes and support businesses' needs in everyday operations to continue their operating as successful. We have our corporate team, which includes areas such as mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, management buyouts, buy-ins, shareholder agreements and corporate governance. Employment, which is hopefully very obvious. We provide advice on HR best practice and employment law and procedures right from recruitment stages. Litigation, where we specialise in a wide range of commercial litigations, alternate dispute resolution methods, mediation, arbitration, adjudication. Pensions, where we support individuals on their pensions issues throughout the life cycle of pension schemes. Real estate is where we provide full service with planning, environment, construction, property litigation, real estate finance and tax expertise. We also have what is known as RIG, where we specialise in all types of criminal and regulatory investigations and related court proceedings. And last but not least, where unfortunately we will support and provide advice to insolvency practitioners, lenders, surveyors, companies, directors and individuals associated with an organisation who may need to become insolvent. So that, as you can see, is our broad area of business legal services, lots of different areas where we can support businesses and individuals with their businesses. So we'll move on to our personal legal services, and this might be the area we are possibly best known for. And this encompasses both our personal injury practice as well as what we call our private wealth offering. So our private wealth includes family law, residential property, tax trusts and estates, as well as will, trust and estates disputes. And all other areas that you can see on screen are encompassed in what we call our personal injury practice. So again, I'll just give you a very short overview. I won't go into too much detail of each of those areas. But firstly, we've got our court of protection team, which is a judicial body who has jurisdiction to make decisions about financial affairs and personal welfare of individuals who lack the mental capacity to make the decisions for themselves. We have family, which includes civil partnerships, same-sex marriage, child custody arrangements, divorce and premarital arrangements. International serious injury, which provides help to those who have been involved in an accident or suffered illness abroad. Medical negligence, where we handle medical negligence claims for people who have suffered an illness or an injury, and that might be as a result of substandard care in a medical setting. So that could be a GP practice, a hospital, a clinic, or a dentist. We've got a military team, which is known as Ministry of Defence, and they assist and provide advice to injured service personnel and their families as part of the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme. We have motor, where we act for major insurers and their policyholders in respect of personal injury claims obviously associated with road traffic accidents. Finally, we have public law, who've helped clients who feel that their rights and their human rights have not been respected. So that could be challenging local authorities, NHS bodies, or even central government bodies. We have residential property, which provides advice to high net worth clients with any size or type of property portfolio, and supporting them with their conveyancing services on their individual property needs. We've got serious injury, where we support clients who sustain brain, spinal and serious orthopaedic injuries. We have wills, trusts and estates disputes, and hopefully very obvious, we deal with disputes relating to wills, estates and trusts. And last but not least, we have our workplace injury and illness team, where we deal with a variety of workplace related claims, so including injuries such as asbestos related disease as well, which you'll hear more from as well from our partner Guy, who's joining us today. So you can see that as we are a full service law firm, we have so many different areas where we can help our clients, and that really is one of our unique selling points. But in addition to that, we are, as I mentioned early in the session, we are very proud of what we call our culture, which has been more than a workplace to our colleagues. And you can see on screen there a number of the things that we are very proud of at the organisation. Firstly, our wellbeing. We aim to provide a culture of openness and support, and that's not just for mental but for physical wellbeing. And we're committed to charters of mindful business, mindful employer and suicide prevention. So if you do join us as a trainee, you have regular conversations with your team, your supervisor, ourselves in early careers, and there are lots of other colleagues as well who can there support you. We have what we call healthy mind advocates across the business, and they are colleagues who are trained from different levels of the business, who are there as mental health champions, trained by Mental Health First Aid England, to have a conversation, confidential conversation, if you feel you need support from a physical or mental well-being. Another key thing for us is diversity. As I've said before, we want to reflect the communities that we serve, and we want to ensure that our colleagues who come from diverse background are supported and feel that they can bring them whole selves to work. And as part of that, we have a number of networking groups that people can join. So we have I Am Equal, which is raising awareness for our LGBTQ+ colleagues. We have I Am Empowered, which focuses on promoting gender equality. I Am Respect, which is around awareness of cultural and ethnic diversity. I Am Aspiring, which is supporting social mobility. And I Am Able, which is providing greater support to those with mental or physical disabilities. And anybody who joins us, as I say, can be a part of those networking groups to drive improvements across the firm. And we also have our own registered charity, IMCF, which we are very proud of, and again is a key thing that anybody who joins us can get involved with. You have 2 volunteering days to use as part of your benefits package, and that's to support our local communities. That could be going in and doing some fundraising work for them, doing some pro bono, or even just painting walls, painting buildings. It's all around being able to support those charities and promote their initiatives. And then we have lots of stuff around learning and development, which is obviously the focus of today's session. So if you do join us as a trainee, I'm not going to steal the thunder of Curtis and Darina, who will speak in a moment, but there is lots of support and development as a trainee, and that involves having people like buddies, mentors, supervisors there to support and be contacting with you on a day-to-day basis. You'll also complete on-the-job learning and also complete our professional skills course as well, which guides you with some of the key skills that you are needed to be a successful solicitor. And as well as that, just as any other colleague would, you'll have access to all of our internal development resources. So that can be training courses, webinars, podcasts, whatever you feel is relevant to support you in your learning needs. Okay, so I'm going to actually move on now. Hopefully that's given you an introduction to who we are as a firm, but we're going to hear from our guest speakers today on our topic for today, which is development. And we're going to hear first from two of our current trainees. So we have Curtis, who is a business legal services trainee, and Darina. So I'm going to come to you first, Curtis, if you can talk about your experience as a trainee and the development you've had, and any advice you would have for our listeners.
Thanks, Natalie. So my name's Curtis and I am a second year business legal services trainee based in the Sheffield office. I joined Irwin Mitchell in August last year after completing my undergraduate law degree and my LPC at Sheffield University. So prior to my training contract, I had volunteered in a university-led legal aid clinic and had also completed vacation schemes during university. And this gave me some practical legal experience before I started my training contract at Irwin Mitchell. I'm currently doing my third seat in construction, and my first two seats were in real estate and insolvency. So throughout my seats, I have had the opportunity to lead on certain matters and also to assist supervising fee earners on larger matters where required. So to give some examples of the kind of things that I've been involved with, in real estate, I was given the opportunity to lead on smaller transactions, such as assignments of leases from one business to another and licenses to alter leasehold properties. But I was also able to assist fee earners on larger transactions, such as the development of a large garden centre within a retail park. In insolvency, I was given the opportunity to lead on various court applications, including bankruptcy petitions and applications for the possession and sale of property. I focused mainly on contentious insolvency, and one of my matters was a contested administration application, and we initially planned that would be dealt with within 2 weeks, but that led to 2 full-day trials, and I understand that case is still ongoing now, even though I've left the seat, so that should give you some idea of how matters can progress when you don't expect them to. And yeah, I've had a lot of client contact throughout my training contract, and I've attended client meetings both in person and virtually, and had regular contact with clients on the matters that I'm working on. If I could pick out some of the highlights of my training contract so far, these would be completing on the sale of a well-known hotel, which was located in the Peak District. I also instructed counsel and attended various insolvency hearings in which we achieved good results for our clients. And another highlight was successfully negotiating with and submitting evidence to the land registry to alter a property's title in favour of our client. So in each seat, I've had a supervisor who was overseeing my development in that seat, and I've had regular meetings, usually on a monthly basis, for formal reviews, and most of the time it's been daily contact with my supervisor who's supervising my cases. Oh, sorry, I've just noticed that my camera might be blurred. Sorry about that. So in terms of advice that I would give, one piece of advice I would give would be to try and get as much practical legal experience as you can before starting a training contract. So working in the law is very different from studying law at university, so whatever experience you can get will be very useful. And one piece of advice that I wish I had received when I was going through the recruitment process for a training contract would be to try and find out and be clear on what type of law firm that you want to work at, and also to be yourself throughout the recruitment process rather than what you think the firm will be looking for. And yes, I'm happy to answer any questions in the Q&A section at the end, and I'll now pass on to Darina.
Hello, my name is Darina. So just like Curtis, I'm a second year trainee solicitor. I am in the PLS stream, so slightly different to Curtis. So I've had kind of seats that relate more to PLS. So my first seat was with family. So I worked in assisting clients at looking at what is the best way to kind of move forward, and anything to do with kind of relationships, divorce, pre-nups, post-nups, but also just looking at what is the best solution for them. That was a really interesting seat. I got to deal with kind of initial inquiries with clients, attend meetings, attend court hearings, assist solicitors and partners in preparing the case and looking at strategy and looking at how we can assist our client best and make sure that their assets are protected. With family, there's a lot of crossover into BLS as well, so quite often we would reach out to our BLS colleagues to either advise on some real estate matters or investments, just to make sure that our client gets a really good package in terms of the support and advice that they have moving forward. My second seat was with serious injury team, so I really enjoyed that as well. So that was looking at clients who may have had some sort of significant injury, and things like a brain injury or a spinal cord injury, meaning that actually for quite a considerable amount of time they will be impacted by that injury, and it is our job to investigate that case and make sure that we have enough evidence to put the case forward and offer as much support as possible to that client. So it's looking at how can we not only secure a financial package for the client, but also ensure that the package is right for them and it's suitable for their needs and their family needs. So if a client has had injury to the legs, for example, then it's really important we look at the accommodation and make sure that accommodation is suitable for them. So it was really interesting. Again, I got to go to a number of different settlement meetings with clients to really understand how the case progresses, and what we need to do to offer the best service possible. So that was really interesting. And now I'm in my third seat, which is general counsel. So it currently does sit with BLS, but because I was really passionate about learning more about business strategy and kind of how the company works, and I requested to go into the seat, and the grad team was really helpful in kind of facilitating that. So at the moment I work on a number of different aspects. So within the general counsel, we look at things like NDAs to do with any business relationships that Owen Mitchell may have. We look at contract reviews, and we also look at any sort of conflicts that may arise as a result of any business relationships that we have, and advising the rest of the business and other areas of law on anything that they need to be aware of in terms of any legislations that are coming through and that they need to be bearing in mind. And it's really interesting because it's sort of a mixture of all areas of laws that Owen Mitchell look at, but also looking at the regulatory side of it, and also the strategy, making sure that we're doing what we need to do to move the company forward in the right direction. So in general, I feel like my training contract has been a really good experience. I got to work with some of the best solicitors in each area, and they are really, really good, and they do make sure that you are exposed to a lot of kind of different types of cases and work, and they will go out of their way to give you that experience and put you forward onto different opportunities, as long as you feel comfortable. Like if you feel comfortable going to a court by yourself, then they'll be able to kind of arrange that for you, but also support you throughout. So yeah, I've really enjoyed my time so far. I think some of the highlights for me has been the opportunity to be involved with the Innovation Forum, which was looking at how can we make sure our business is ready for the future, looking at any technology developments that we need to make sure that everyone can work properly moving forward, which has been really helpful actually with the lockdown, because we were able to use some of the thinking that we did prior to that and put it in place when the lockdown happened, and also being involved with the security champions, so looking at how do we make sure that our firm is cyber secure, and data protection team looking at how we can work as a business to protect our clients' data, and make sure that all of the fee earners and everybody understands the need for that. And I think my key highlight was the opportunity to co-author a law tech book, so I've been really interested in law tech for some time, and Graham Thompson, who's our Chief Security Officer at Owen Mitchell, and I co-authored the book, so I'm really proud of that. In terms of the advice that I would give to anyone thinking of a career in law is don't limit what you where you're going into, so don't try and specialize in something too early. I think there is a perception that straight after university you should know whether you want to be a family lawyer, a serious injury lawyer, or a real estate lawyer, and I think don't limit yourself, because legal services are constantly evolving, and it's about making sure that you've got the right skill set. And I think the key skills at the moment for future lawyers is about how do you look at solving problems, so different ways of looking at coming up with a solution, because that will help you in any area of law, and it will also assist you in kind of advising the business as well, in terms of how the business should innovate to make sure that we remain competitive and provide best possible service for our clients, and be curious and ask questions, be enthusiastic. So I think if you work on those skills, then it doesn't matter what area of law you go into, and you'll have a great kind of skill set to move you forward in anything you do. And again, I'll be happy to take questions at the end as well.
Many thanks, Darina, for that input. We're going to obviously move on now. That's obviously very focused on our trainee and our trainees' experiences and their training contracts. But what we do with our focus of our trainees is that they join us, and then we want to retain as many of our trainees as we can into what we call newly qualified positions. So we're going to move on nicely actually now to our newly qualified solicitors, who are former trainees with us. So we have Greg from Business Legal Services and Hayen from Personal Legal Services. And we're going to hear from those, both of them, in terms of their experiences as former trainees, but also with a spin on actually now they have transitioned and they have had a year. They both qualified in September 2019. They've had a year to actually qualify and transition, what it's been like as a newly qualified solicitor and what they are doing to continually develop. So we'll come to you first, Greg, if we can hear from you and your thoughts.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name's Greg. I'm a corporate solicitor in the Manchester office, but I do work with other offices. So I've worked with the London, Birmingham and Leeds offices. I initially did a history degree, so I did a degree at the University of Durham, and then I did the GDL at BPP University, and then the LPC at the University of Law. So in terms of my experiences before my training contract, I did a few vacation schemes, so I did 3 of those. I also did some informal work experience just through sort of personal contacts. I did a few formal insight days at city firms, which I think that's a really good opportunity to get kind of a snapshot of a firm. And I also did some work experience with the in-house team at the John Lewis Partnership, because I had a part-time job there, so that was really interesting. So in terms of my development at Owen Mitchell, so the seats I were real estate disputes, corporate and commercial litigation, so I had quite a good varied experience, I think. So in terms of my training contract development, I suppose you could split that into sort of technical development, so that's sort of work on matters. You do first drafts of documents, you do research, and just sort of focus on developing your legal skills, I guess. You also have some formal training for each seat, so there's usually sort of a programme that is followed. So you get 1 or 2 sessions a month, just on various aspects of that department, which again is really helpful. And then you have external training. So the University of Law will for example, put on some training sessions, as well as things like your PSC, so your professional skills course. And then I guess the other important aspect of development as a trainee and as an NQ is business development. So as trainees, you're very much encouraged to network and build your sort of network of intermediaries, potential clients, other lawyers maybe. So that's something that we definitely focus on. So then in terms of transitioning to an NQ, I think Owen Mitchell is good in that being a trainee very much prepares you for life as an NQ. But having said that, there is definitely a learning curve and there's definitely an upward curve in terms of the responsibility that you get, in terms of sort of carrying on your own matters. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like too big of a steep curve, and you're definitely helped through that. And the supervision doesn't just sort of immediately stop as soon as you qualify. But I'd say probably the most, the sort of thing that was most different for me was a shift in mindset. So when you're a trainee, as it should be, you have sort of lots of seats, you have lots of options. Your experience is sort of quite varied, and I certainly went into my training contract with the sort of idea of just getting as much experience in various ways, contentious, non-contentious experience. When you qualify, it's a slightly sort of, it's definitely a shift. So you are now sort of in the department that you want to be in, hopefully. And you're doing something that you want to do for the foreseeable future. So instead of just planning for the end of your seat, which might just be a few months down the line, you're planning for potentially your career. So in terms of development, you kind of have to shift your goals almost. So in terms of what I'm wanting to do now, firstly, just gain as much experience again as possible, but this time in corporate work, and fill in the gaps of things that perhaps I might not have done as a trainee. So in my case, I've not really worked on many joint ventures. So that's something that I'm going to be asking around the national team, see if anyone's got one on that I can assist with. And also focus on private equity as well. I've done a few of those, but I think because it's such a big part of our work, I just want to get experience of sort of all the different aspects of private equity. And then I guess the other thing that I want to focus on in terms of my development is sector knowledge and specialism. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that is going to entail for me at the moment, but I would like to identify a specific sector eventually where I can really get to know it and sort of relate the work I do at the moment to the clients in that sector. Like I say, I've not sort of identified where I want to go just yet, but it's something that I'm definitely keeping at the forefront of my mind in order to make a decision a bit later on. So in terms of advice that I wish I'd known, or potentially some advice to others starting their career in law, I think the first thing that I'd say is just try and grow your legal network as much as you can, especially when you're looking to apply for vacation schemes, for training contracts. Meet and follow up with as many people in the industry as you can, and talk their ear off, find out as much as you can about their careers, about their path into law, about the work they do. One thing that I found that's quite useful in doing is sort of getting to know the different firms. It's quite difficult in some ways to know what a firm is actually like. Hopefully events like this, I think, really give a good idea of what Owen Mitchell is like. But if you can't go to events like this for all firms, just talking to a trainee there or a solicitor there or a partner, it will really help you get a sense of what the firm is like, I think, and whether they're happy there, whether they would recommend you applying there. So I think that's one thing I would say. And Second thing is, and this is probably more from a commercial and corporate business law type angle, is try to think of the legal aspects of different industries. So think why certain companies and certain sectors would need lawyers and how lawyers might help those businesses. So if, for example, you're really into sports, perhaps think what Manchester United would use lawyers for, what type of things they would be doing to grow their business that perhaps a lawyer could help with, or the risks inherent in carrying on their business that a lawyer could potentially mitigate. And I think that really helps, and it certainly helped me in sort of putting our job into context. And then finally, I'll probably just say, as much as you can, try and make commercial awareness part of your sort of daily routine. I know you'll hear commercial awareness said quite a bit, but I think for me that just meant keeping up with current events, but more importantly, think about how these current events impact on law firms, how they impact businesses and people who might potentially use legal services. And again, just look at the world around you and think, how could a lawyer help in all these situations? And I think that's everything from me.
Hi everyone. So my name is Hayen, and I am a POS solicitor in the Birmingham office. I'm part of the medical negligence department, although my specialism is actually abuse litigation. So that's the subspecialism that we have in the medical negligence department at Mitchell. So in terms of my previous experience, I studied a law degree at the University of Warwick. I also then did my LPC at the University of Law before commencing my training contract at Mitchell. In terms of when I actually applied for my legal work placement, I was in my second year of university. So at that time, I did have some legal experience in terms of I did a work experience placement at a high street law firm and also went to open days my first year. But I think a lot of the bulk of my experience at that time was, for example, the part-time jobs that I did. I was a student support worker, so I took notes for students who were disabled as part of the university's services, and also worked in the vacation times as part of their conference facilities, etc., and did some volunteering and things like that. So in terms of experiences, I wouldn't say it's just legal experience. Your non-legal experience and all the other things that you do is also really important, I would say. And so in my second year I did the legal work placement. So I also did another VAC scheme, and then after that I started my training contract. So that was in about 2017. And so in terms of the seats that I did family law, and then I did international personal injury, and I also did medical negligence before doing a whole year in the abuse litigation department, which is where I then qualified. In terms of the experience I gained as a trainee, I would say that it was really quite varied, because I had one seat which was non-PI, so I really learnt quite a lot in the family department, because that was my first seat where I was learning office skills as well as skills on how to be a good trainee in terms of how to balance the work that I was given, how to meet deadlines and things like that. But obviously those are soft skills that you'll probably have developed prior to joining a firm, but more in a work context. And also practical experience of going to court hearings, gaining experience in divorces and prenups and areas like that. And then in terms of my more PI-based seats, also gained experience in terms of civil litigation and obviously client care and things like that. So I would say my training contract was a really good opportunity to develop, to become the solicitor that I am today, really, because you really do get quite a lot of support from your supervisors. So you have regular meetings with them each month to discuss your progress, how you can improve, and that's obviously really helpful, because often you won't know how to improve until it's identified to you. And for me, that's a really good way of learning things, and also just learning from people and seeing how they work as well. And so particularly for my second year, so because for me, in terms of abuse work, I hadn't done that area in my first year, so that was a really good year to kind of consolidate the knowledge and I already had in personal injury and kind of apply it to what is a particularly sensitive area of the law. And so that was also quite a good year as well to kind of start beginning to be more independent as a solicitor. Obviously start working more independently, because when you first become a trainee, you're kind of given tasks, because that's how you start with learning, when you start working on people's cases. But eventually the goal as part of being a solicitor rather is, start working independently and having your own caseload. And so I qualified last year, so I've been an NQ for about a year now, and I was, in terms of what I do, I have a full caseload of abuse litigation work. So basically those are cases which arise out of either sexual or physical abuse. So they're personal injury claims to try rehab, in terms of the compensation that the survivors get, is to try rehabilitate them and put them back in a position if the abuse had not occurred. So it's basically for the tort. So we often bring claims against the organisations, that's via vicarious liability or schools or local authorities. So it's a really, really fascinating area of law, which is obviously requires a lot of delicate client care because of the subject matter. But I've found it very, very rewarding, and it's been a really good area where you can kind of, it's the law is ever changing in it as well. I know that sounds really cliche, but there was a Supreme Court decision that came out last year, so that also was quite a lot to get to grips with. But obviously there's so much support in the Irwin Mitchell team, that especially with my supervisors and the people I work with as well, that it's been a really good transition, I would say. But in terms of my plans for development, I would say, so as I mentioned, I'm currently balancing my casework as well as working with my supervisor on his cases to gain experience on more advanced cases, to obviously help with my development in that respect. So he might have cases that are a bit more advanced in a litigation process, that are in directions potentially heading towards trial, for example, and that's really good to learn as well, because the learning never really stops as a solicitor, which is one of the good things about the job, because it's never like, you don't just qualify and that's it, because there's always things to learn, and you always have to keep your legal skills up and your knowledge of the practice area, and obviously keeping up with the news and all the developments about what's happening with the case law, etc. And so I'm also, one of the good things as well as being a solicitor at Mitchell is that you get a lot of responsibility as early on. So I'm also helping with developing relationships with charities who also work with abuse survivors. And so that's been a really good development point for me, both as a solicitor and also in terms of the business relationships and partnerships that we create with other organisations and third parties. And so I would say that it's just keeping up with that really, and kind of growing with my technical skills, my legal skills. And so in terms of what I wish I had known at the start, I think I would say, in terms of advice generally, it's more time management and organisational skills really do matter. And so because, for example, when you're balancing cases, it's it's like some cases are moving more quickly, some are more slowly, and it's about balancing everything that's happening, and all the other extra activities that you would like to do as a solicitor. At the outset, your soft skills really are important, and so I would kind of encourage you to really work on those, and those really do help with your applications as well, in terms of the competencies that you can demonstrate in your experiences. And I would also say, just be open about which area you want to specialise in, because for me, if someone told me I was going to be abuse litigation solicitor at the outset when I was in my second year, I probably would have been really surprised, because I had never actually heard of that specialism of personal injury. And so it's just keeping an open mind, because I went into this seat when I was in my second year, but the graduate recruitment are really supportive in kind of keep bearing in mind where you want to go, and also they knew that I really liked both family and medical negligence, and so this was actually the perfect seat to kind of qualify in because it has elements of both. And so I would say just keep an open mind, and as long as you're passionate about what you're doing and keep up with your skills and stuff, then it's all okay. That's probably what I would tell myself if I could go back in time.
Brilliant. Thank you both, Greg and Hayden, for your thoughts on your development as former trainees and now as recent NQs. So we're going to move on to our final guest speaker for today, which is Guy Darliston, a partner from our Workplace Injury and Illness Department, on his personal development through to partner and his continual development as a colleague at Irwin Mitchell. So I'll hand over to you, Guy, to hear your thoughts.
Thanks very much, Natalie, and good afternoon, everybody. Right, so where to start? Well, my name is Guy Darliston. I'm a partner in personal injuries, a part of PLS, and within that area, I specialise in workplace injury, and within workplace injury, I specialise in asbestos disease. I work from the Southampton office. I'm actually the regional managing partner of the Southampton office, and I also have a number of national responsibilities for the group and the division. So the first point, I suppose, how did I progress in Irwin Mitchell as a partner? Well, I joined Irwin Mitchell 21 years ago. And actually, I joined as I wasn't a trainee here, but I joined a couple of years post qualification, so probably just after where Hayden and Greg are at the moment. I joined the London office, and then I just specialised in personal injury work. I mean, I knew I was joining one of the best teams in the country, but I didn't know a huge amount about personal injury. And then I just progressed, and I started to pick up asbestos cases. And again, at the time, I think Hayden said, keep an open mind. I didn't really even know what asbestos was at that time. And so fast forward a few years, I'd expanded the team. It was the largest dedicated asbestos team in any firm anywhere in the country. And I was traveling, I was appearing in conferences in Europe and Ireland and the States and various other places. So it was almost by accident that I ended up in that particular area. But other things I did, I think, quite early on, I was interested in the operational side of the business, and I was drafted into supporting the development of our IT systems, our case management systems in PI, as a sort of voice of a lawyer to help the teams build those systems. And that gave me a great insight into the mechanics of the law firm. I then also got involved in management of risk. So where potentially it goes wrong, and anything from a complaint from a client to missing a key date and where that might end up in an illegal claim against the firm, and trying to just identify those risks and prevent them from happening in the future. And that then links into a huge amount about client care. And understanding what our clients' needs are, and so I've throughout the years I've always been given these opportunities, and it's just really where my interest lay, and one thing led to another. So I then became a partner, and I was given an opportunity to open a new office in 2013 in Southampton, which I did, and at that time there were only 3 of us, and now there are 70 or so, probably slightly more, in Southampton. It's a full service office covering all the division, and that in itself was a challenge. And I think later on I'm just going to talk briefly about how do you continually develop as a partner. Well, opening new office was like starting a new business. It was like, although I had the support of the wider Irwin Mitchell group, I was there making decisions locally from where I can get run out of milk, so I had to go and get the milk for the day. to really understanding the local market and the local clients and what was required of a law firm down there. So yeah, a huge and varied and challenging career so far, and it continues to be so. So in terms of developing as a partner, I think, you know, one or two have already said this afternoon, it is just a constant evolving business, I suppose, primarily responding to the market, and the market's always changing. What our clients want from us is always changing, so we have to adapt. There are obvious legal changes that occur. Sometimes they're quite groundbreaking, and they in themselves might mean that we have to adapt our business, or to again evolve and present ourselves in a different way to be competitive. And then I suppose our business, the internal workings of our business change. Our colleagues change. We grow, we recruit, we train, we develop the people around us, and as a partner, that's probably the most important aspect of my role, is to develop those around me. So spotting talent, you know, whether it's as a trainee or a newly qualified solicitor, and nurturing that talent and giving those people the opportunity to find what it is that they want to do with their career, and hopefully that will be within Owen Mitchell. So that's a very, very important aspect, a leadership aspect. And then I suppose finally, you know, another factor which means we have to develop and change and evolve are just general external features, and the biggest one at the moment clearly is the COVID crisis, and that has really tested a lot of people. It's tested our management, it's tested everyone in our business, and we as a business have coped very, very well to continue to operate effectively for our clients in extremely challenging situation, mostly remotely, as you can see, but we are continuing to do a good job, and but that has meant tests for each and every one of us, and in ways in which I would never have predicted a few years ago. And then I suppose the final bit I was going to say was just in terms of my advice to you all starting out on your career, and this is, I suppose, echoing some of the comments that have already been mentioned, but the first thing I would say is yes, do keep an open mind. That you might have I don't know what stage you're at, whether you're at university or before university or you're at law school, but you may have some idea of maybe the area of law you want to go into, but just try not to be blinkered to what else is available. And most importantly, I suppose, just focus on what you enjoy, and that might not be just what you enjoy about the courses you're taking, but also just in your life. And I think it might have been Greg who mentioned about thinking about how Manchester United might require legal services, but also just think, you know, what interests you outside your work, outside your studies. Every aspect of our daily life will have a legal component. There will be a law firm, and you know, hopefully Owen Mitchell, which will have a department which links in with that particular interest. And I would certainly say that's a good place to start. Do speak to as many people as you possibly can. Do a lot of research. Back when I started, there was, I don't even think there was, would you believe it, the internet didn't exist. When I researched law firms I was applying to, I had to go to the library and dig out old copies of the Law Society Gazette and read, and I did speak to a lot of people, but there's a lot more information out there available to you, and you just have to do the groundwork. So that includes our social media platforms. I think as a law firm we're probably one of the most active. in all channels, and you get a sense of the culture, I think, from a lot of what goes out, a sense of what motivates people, what they enjoy doing, both connected to the cases and the transactions that we're involved in, but also, I think has been said, the way in which we support our communities, and often that is reflected in our social media presence. So, and then the final thing I'd say is to try and get some, it's really difficult, but get some insight into where, what the shape of a law firm will be in several years' time, and get an idea of the firms that you're looking at. Do you think those firms are set up to adapt and grow and expand in the right way, knowing the way in which the market is going to change? I certainly, without hesitation, believe that Owen Mitchell is. It's always been highly motivated about responding to what's happening around us and evolving and growing and adapting. So yeah, no, I'll leave it there, but I'm very happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Guy, for your input there. I think we can all agree that it's really useful to hear from all of our speakers at the different stages of their career as to their thoughts on development, how they have progressed themselves, and obviously advice for you all, for those that are considering a career in law, and hopefully at Owen Mitchell with us. So we're going to move now on to our final part of the session, which is our live Q&A panel. I know there have been lots of questions that are coming in already, so thank you for those that have been putting those in there. And we've also got some questions from those who inputted them as part of their registration. So what we'll do is we're going to go through a number of these questions. If you've got any more, feel free to pop them in, and hopefully we can get through as many as we can before we close at 2:30. So I'm going to go to the first question, which was submitted from Annie, and I'm going to go to Darina and Curtis for your thoughts on this. And the question is, what challenges do trainees face within their training contract, and how do you overcome these challenges? So if I can come to you first, Curtis, and then to you, Darina.
Thanks, Natalie. So I think one of the biggest challenges for me as the training contract has gone on has been trying to keep an open mind. And the nature of the training contract is that you will do 6 months in a seat. You'll start feeling comfortable with what you're doing, and then as soon as you feel like you actually know what you're doing, you are thrown into a totally different seat, and it's like starting all over again. So I think keeping an open mind throughout the training contract and learning from the people around you and asking as many questions as you can. One thing I've learned is that you're not expected to know anything when you start a new seat. So just keep an open mind and be willing to learn, I think, is the biggest thing that I've adjusted to throughout the training contract.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what Curtis said. I think it is about the idea of unknown. So when you start your training contract, you don't quite know what to expect. You might have never done an area of law in that specific seat. So everything's new, the case management's new, the team's new, cases, clients, and I think it takes a bit of time to get to know it. And then there is a bit of a sort of change again when you move your seat. So there is a bit of sort of worry of, will I be able to kind of adjust quickly enough? But I think there is so much support there, and actually because the teams are quite big, from my experience, I found that you can either reach out to somebody sort of like on the partner level, or a trainee, another trainee, or a paralegal, litigation assistant. So there's a big network of support that is out there. So if there's anything that you're not sure about or you need any training with, then you will definitely be able to kind of get that from anybody within the team or even the department. So, you know, any doubts that you have, people are always happy to kind of help you and assist you so that you kind of feel a bit better when settling in the team.
Thank you both for that answer. We're going to move on to our next question, which is from Shannon, and I'm going to ask Hayden if you could answer this question for us, which is, what is the process like for trainees when applying for a newly qualified position at the firm?
So the process for me, it was quite informal because you don't have to go through another interview again or anything like that. It was just a conversation with my supervisor about whether there would be availability for an NQ position. But normally graduate recruitment try to place you in a seat where they anticipate there will be an NQ job. So there wasn't too much issue with that, and obviously I really enjoyed my time as a trainee, and obviously I want to stay on, and so with that in mind, it was quite an informal process, and then later on you're informally told by graduate recruitment if an offer has been made, and that was it really. So and then you just continue on with your training contract and eventually qualify. So it wasn't too complex for me.
Thanks, Ian. In a similar question, I'm going to point this one actually at Greg, is from actually Lauren, which is there a possibility of dual qualifying at Irwin Mitchell? So, for example, can you qualify into 2 different areas, or must you choose one specific team?
I think that you have to choose one specific team. But I may be wrong about that. I mean, certainly from my experience, I kind of just went off the seats I'd already done, and there wasn't really much scope to combine the two. So from my own knowledge, I don't think you can, but perhaps that's probably one I would have to check with the early careers team. Sorry, I can't be more definitive.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Greg. I think just to echo that, you're right. You were, when we do qualify, we do ask you to determine which department you would like to qualify into. So that will be one area. So if it's business, it could be corporate, it could be real estate. If it was personal, it would be medical negligence, or it would be family, for example. So it does mean one area. And that is based on where we have the newly qualified positions. However, what I will say is it's not to say that that's going to define you for the rest of your career. You can see from the presentation today, we have so many different areas. So for any reason you actually has a passion in a different area and you wanted to pursue that later on in your career at Irwin Mitchell, it's all about building those networks, having those conversations, and then exploring whether there is opportunity to do so. So hopefully that answers your question, Lauren. I'm going to go now to Guy. So we've had a question around actually what are the biggest challenges that you think will affect the firm in the next 5 years? So I don't know if you could give a view from a partner what you think are the biggest challenges that we will face.
Right, yeah, well that is a challenging question. I mean, I mentioned about the market changing all the time. This current epidemic clearly is that there are lots of things going on in terms of our client base who themselves are reorganising themselves and facing a number of challenges, and we're just trying to respond to them. That's an immediate short-term challenge. I think in the long term, I think that there may be a greater sort of consolidation of the legal market, so that there are fewer small firms and a lot more services are sort of gravitate to larger organisations. I think for us as well, the challenge is to have that community connection, which you all heard early on is one of our main focal points. To remain connected to a community, but to be able to do it in a virtual way, and that is a challenge. That there's often a bit of conflict. I mean, one of the reasons that we have 15 offices is that we do feel that it's very, very important for us to be in the heart of our community, and it's how to maintain that whilst a lot of services are now becoming sort of remote and online.
Many thanks, Guy. We'll move on to a couple more questions. So we have a question from Jasmine, which I'm going to point again to both Dorina and Kirsty, so you can have both of your thoughts. I think it would be good to see both areas. And there's a couple of questions in this, so I'll just read these to you. So we have, how much client contact do trainees usually experience during the training contract? Does this differ between seats and departments? And do trainees receive regular performance reviews so they can see how they are progressing and where they need to improve? So if I come to you first, Curtis, and then Darina to follow.
Yes, so the first question I think was about client contact. So in my experience, it differs depending on the type of work that you're involved with, and also within each team. So it might be that for a big transaction, for example, with a bigger client, there might be a partner who leads the contact with that client. But then to contrast that with smaller transactions or smaller cases, it may be that the trainee leads on that transaction. So I've had it where I've been the main point of contact for the client when I've been working on certain matters, and I've also had it where I've assisted a partner in them responding to the client. So generally speaking, you do get a lot of client contact, but again, it does depend on the team and it does depend on the matter that you're working on. And in terms of the second aspect of the question, sorry, Natalie, can you repeat that again? I missed it.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you receive as trainees regular performance reviews to see how you're progressing and where you need to improve? And who are those with?
Yes, so there's formal reviews that take place as part of the training contract. So they occur, you have one at the 4-week point of the seat, one at the midpoint of the seat, and one at the end of the seat. So there's plenty of scope to see where you can improve throughout the seat. And I've found that it does depend on the team that you're in and your supervisor, but I've had one supervisor where it was unusual for us not to be in contact on a daily basis just because I was working on a lot of cases with him. Whereas in other teams, I've had a main supervisor, but I've also done work for other members of the team who check in with me as well. So it does vary, but in terms of formal reviews, there's 3 within each seat, and then you do get feedback from supervising fee earners as you help them with different matters.
Thanks, Curtis. And Darina, your client contact and thoughts?
Yeah, I think I've had quite a lot of client contact actually, and it might be because I've had kind of PLS seats, but it goes anything from taking an initial call from a brand new client and going through some of the options and then booking an actual meeting, to attending a hearing with a client, just to kind of make sure they understand everything and explain the process to them. Or it could be that you are sitting on the call. So if it's an established client, then perhaps you'll sit on the call and kind of listen and really take in the case and some of the concerns that the client might have or any issues that the client would like to resolve. But I think it does vary. So it can be, depending on how comfortable you are and the experience you have, you might be okay just to go in and deal with the meeting yourself. But you know, with more established or more complex cases, you might actually need obviously input from your supervisor. But I think there is quite a lot of contact that you do get, and even with the lockdown, I found that my supervisors would try and make sure that I would either kind of be on the call with them, so we'd have a conference call, or we would have a similar version to what we're doing now, which is kind of like a Teams call. So it would be almost like a face-to-face meeting, but it would be sort of on a PC, obviously, and just to make sure that I really get that contact with the client to make sure I don't miss out on anything. So there's a lot of that. And then in terms of the feedback, like Curtis mentioned, we do have the sort of standard 4-week mid-seat and then at the end of the seat catch-ups, which are kind of the formal ones. But on top of that, I'd probably say weekly, a few times a week, you'd have catch-ups with your supervisor and other members of the teams that you're working with, and they will all give you feedback. I think that is something that they are very good at, because at each piece of work that you hand in, they will give you a feedback on, this is what you might want to think about, this is what was really good, and then that way you know kind of any points that you need to work on, or anything that you need to kind of expand on, more experience that you might need. So I think they have been quite good on that.
Thanks, Darina. We've got a couple of questions associated with our application process and our placement scheme, which I will hopefully answer for you now. So we've got a question from Kaylee and a similar question from Salika around what do we look for in trainees or applicants at Irwin Mitchell. And There are lots of things that we are looking for. I think some of the key things probably to point out is we want people who are resilient, who are able to deal with challenges, deal with change and be adaptable. We want people to be able to communicate. We speak to clients, and you'll hear from, as you've heard from the trainees, you'll speak to clients on a day-to-day basis. So you need to be able to communicate with those both orally and written, and also be able to adapt communication relevant to the situation that you're in. I think the other aspect is around commercial awareness. I know this word is such a buzzword used in the industry, but I think the key thing for us is around the ability to be able to understand the business and be able to relate that to clients, and also be able to understand how things can happen in the industry or outside, you know, take things like COVID, Brexit, for example, and think about actually what would the impact be to the firm. Essentially, we are a business. We've got to be able to make profit and continue to operate successfully. So it's being able to think about all of these external sectors or internal factors, that could impact upon us and how that could impact upon our clients. If you are able to relay that and think about that, that for us is really, you know, what can make out a standout candidate. And then I think the final thing is just being yourself. You know, we take anybody and everybody for who they are. We don't have a mould or a perfect person, as you say. It's all about the different skills that you can bring from your experiences. It doesn't need to be legal experience that you've done. It can be volunteering, charity work, part-time roles, caring responsibilities, whatever it is, and you have in your career history, it will have add value and be valuable to your application. So do really think about what skills you've got and how you can bring them out in the application. We've had another question around our placements and what our placement opportunities are and how to get a placement. So we have a legal work placement scheme is what we call it, or formerly as a vacation scheme, as you may know about it in the sector. And our legal work placement is a 2-week scheme in June or July, where you will come in and do 2 weeks in either business or personal legal services, and you will have an opportunity to experience a number of different departments and also get a feel of the culture of the firm. We really encourage people to go through that route if you are interested in training contracts, because it does also give you a feel as, is this the place I want to take my training contract? Is this the place I want to see my career? So it's important that you try and get a feel of that. In terms of the process, we are open now for applications until the 4th of January 2021 for both legal work placements and for training contracts only for those who can't do a placement. And the recruitment process consists of an application, a video interview and assessment centre. And then you will come in, if you are coming through the legal work placement route, you will come in and do the placement in June and July. And all of our training contract offers are then made in the end of July. So hopefully that has answered your question, Gabrielle, in terms of our placements. A couple more just general questions about recruitment before I come to our speakers. We've had a question from Megan on how many training contracts we offer per office location. And it really does vary, Megan, in terms of the business need. So I think it was mentioned by Hayden before that we recruit very much to where we envision newly qualified solicitor roles to be, so that we can try and retain trainees, at the end of the training contract. So it varies. Some of our smaller offices will take around 2 trainees a year, whereas up to obviously some of our bigger offices like Manchester and London and Birmingham will take, an increased number of trainees. But what I would say to you is not to go necessarily for the bigger offices where there may be more opportunities. It's having a think about for each of the offices actually what departments are there and what interests you and where you would like to also work. So you can find out more information about what seats we have in each of the offices on our digital brochure, which is online on our graduate recruitment page. So I encourage everybody to have a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to go now to Darina and Curtis again. I'll ask Curtis if you can answer this question, and then we'll go to Darina for the second question. So Curtis, is there anything that Irwin Mitchell does differently to give their trainee solicitors a unique and valuable experience?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, it's the approachability of everyone within Irwin Mitchell and just the general culture. So I know, speaking to friends who've trained at other firms, that there's not as much of a work-life balance. Some partners may not be as approachable. That's mainly City London firms that I've heard of that. Whereas I've always found that the teams that I've worked for have always placed a big emphasis on having a work-life balance and just a sense of well-being within your job. I've never felt within a team that I wasn't able to ask questions or to ask for guidance on how to do something, and I feel like it's a really good firm for culture and for work-life balance as a trainee.
Thanks, Curtis. And that answered some of hopefully Chloe's question, which was around the culture and the hours of work at the firm. And Davina, can I come to you around what activities can students do at university which will help them prepare for a career in law?
So I would look at what you can do in university, but also outside of university. So obviously, if you can join any sort of societies or do any sort of pro bono street law, then obviously get involved with that. But also, if you have any part-time jobs, so it doesn't have to be in law, I think there's a lot of skills you can gain from that. Also think about a voluntary sector. If there's any area that you think you are maybe passionate about, or you think you would develop skills that would help you in your career, then definitely give that a go. I mean, for me, I knew that I wanted to go into law, so I volunteered for police for a number of years, and that helped me to kind of build up my confidence, communication, and that's how I kind of build that up. So it depends on maybe the area you're looking at, opportunities available to you. So it might be depending on what area you live in, how accessible some of these are. But look at anything from part-time jobs to any sort of societies to voluntary sector of what you can do. Even things like collecting money for charity. I think you do have to have confidence for that. So anything like that would be really helpful for your application, because it would demonstrate the skills that you might later need when you become a solicitor.
Thank you, Dorina. Gail, we've got a couple of questions if you're comfortable to answer, please. So there's two questions that are quite linked, so I'm going to join those together. So what's the biggest impact that you think a combination of the COVID pandemic and Brexit will have on the firm and its practice areas? And what should future trainees expect from a new normal of post-COVID-19?
Okay, right. Well, in terms of Brexit, I mean, there are a number of challenges which we had our eye on, I think, well, for a number of years. Clearly there are implications in relation to some of our international work, but we've had sight of those for some time, so we're putting in place measures to adapt, and also, there are opportunities, as with all challenges. So that's something that we're looking at. In relation to to COVID, as I've alluded to before, that's been clearly a massive disruptor, but also it has pushed us forward as a business. We've managed to do things in the space of 6 months that potentially would have taken 2 or 3 years to develop, because of the need to having to do it. And one example is, from a technology point of view, at one point, if not now, we have I don't know, 1,700 people working from laptops from their homes, and that would just have been unthinkable a year ago. Sorry, Nat, what was the second point of the question?
The second question was, what should future trainees expect from a new normal post-COVID? Sorry, how do you think it would potentially change trainees' experiences?
Well, I would hope that in one sense it will give greater opportunity, I think, because we're a bit more linked in now, strangely, with the way in which we're communicating, the accessibility, using technology to its limits, to share information. So in terms of a learning platform, I think there'll be greater opportunities, greater collaboration across the national teams, less of a sense of, although there's no great sense of being in one office and being separated from the business. I think we communicate pretty well anyway. But I think in the future, that will be a lot more seamless. I think one challenge that we face, I suppose, is in terms of all learning, but particularly at an early level, is you won't necessarily, if you're working remotely, we don't get that sense of sitting near and around other people and learning from what's going on around you. And at the moment, we're just trying to think how we can bridge that particular gap. So that might be a bit of a challenge. But as I've said earlier, our business, our firm is all about developing junior people, bringing them on to take over effectively.
Thank you, Guy, for your thoughts on that. I've got a couple more questions generally around applications and education requirements, which I will answer for you. So we had a question from Arthur on how would you advise graduates who've completed a qualifying law degree but missed out during the last training contract cycle? Is there scope to start a training contract before September 2023? We are obviously going out now for our applications from now until January for 2023 training contracts. So what we do say is at the moment we can't guarantee an earlier start than 2023. However, if things do change and vacancies arise sooner and you are offered a training contract, what we will do is see if there's anybody that can start earlier, we will give you the opportunity to ask if you would like to do so. So that's the advice associated with that. In terms of if you missed out during the last training contract cycle, what I would say is just taking on board any feedback that you received from those recruitment processes, bringing those into your experiences and your application in each of the different elements of the recruitment process to try and hopefully help you improve. And attending events like this will give you lots more insight that you can then refer to when you are doing your application or in an interview environment, for example. So I think doing things like that can only help you improve and hopefully help you in securing a training contract in this cycle. But as it is always, it's a very competitive process, so we appreciate how difficult it is. We've had questions around should the SQE and the impending SQE that's coming into play very shortly, and whether people should stick to the LPC route or choose the SQE, and what we are doing as a firm regarding the SQE. So at the moment we can't give you advice as to whether you should choose the LPC or the SQE route. We as a firm are doing a lot of consultation across the organisation as to how the SQE could impact our training contract and what it could look like. And therefore, once we are ready to communicate that, we'll go out live on all of our channels as to what the impact will be and how future applicants like yourself can get included in that. So my advice would be speak to your careers advisors at university, or alternatively, if you're not in university at the moment, have a chat with either the SRA, they're answering questions at the moment, or Uni of Law, for example, or BPP, and get some thoughts from them as to which they would suggest for you. At the moment, we will continue to take people through the traditional routes whilst we continue to decide what our approach will be from the SQE. In terms of how much weight we put on A-level and GCSE results has been asked, and obviously the grades associated with that. And I'm pleased to say that we actually have removed the minimum requirements for A-level grades, so we don't ask to see your A-levels anymore. We don't ask that as part of your application process. So if you do have slightly lower grades in your A-levels, do not panic. We very much focus and we only ask on your university degree, and we don't actually see that in the first stage of the process, which is your application, because we blind screen our applications, so we don't see your name, your gender, your university, your grade, or what you've studied. We do check it before you come to assessment centre just to ensure you can pass a training contract, but we can assure you that we have trainees and we have partners that have got 2 2s in their degrees as well. So it's not to say that that is going to limit you if you are concerned about that. And then we've also had another question which is associated with applications and are they considered on a rolling basis? They are not. We don't progress people and reduce the amount of people going. What we do is once we hit that deadline date of the 4th of January 2021, all applications are read, and then from then on we progress candidates that have been successful through that stage. What I would say is we just encourage you, don't leave it to midnight on the night of the application. Try and plan in when you're going to do your application as soon as you can. Okay, and we're going to go now to the NQs actually. So we'll go to Greg first and then Hayen. What has been the most rewarding work that you've been able to be a part of so far at Owen Mitchell? So Greg, if I can come to you first.
Well, the most rewarding, it's a good question. Probably one of the M&A transactions that I've worked on. So last year, when I was still a trainee, actually, we did a acquisition of a new company for a client who's in the sort of IFA, financial planning, private banking sector. And it was the first transaction that I'd really worked on from start to finish. And it was quite a sizable one as well. So it was a really good opportunity for me to sort of get to know what a corporate lawyer does. Yeah, it was quite a complicated one. It had sort of various things that we needed to do before the transaction could actually complete. So it was challenging, but then at the end of it, it was really rewarding because we got it over the line and got a really good result for the client.
So I would say my most rewarding experience is probably because for example, a lot of the cases I deal with are for minors, so people under 18, and so as a result the settlement, so once you've settled a case, it needs to go through a court process called an approval hearing, so it has to go through a judge for them to double check that everything's okay. And so it's been really rewarding when I've gone to those hearings and the judge has been happy with the approval bundle that I've prepared and the court documents, and they've approved it, and it's all been done and dusted. So that's always really reassuring when a judge has kind of been happy with the work you've done, because you know it can be quite nerve-wracking when you're standing there and waiting for it to all be approved. And I think that's quite a highlight of being a litigator as well, when it's when a case has settled and it's been a successful conclusion.
Thank you both for your thoughts on that. We've got a question on, are trainee contracts ever offered to much more mature applicants, or is this entry route tailored specifically to current university leavers? I'm going to take that question and say absolutely not. You know, we take anybody at any stage of their career. So if you are slightly mature in your career and perhaps just changing into a different sector, it's something you want to pursue and you're just starting that now, absolutely fine. Please do apply to us. We have a current trainee with us who's actually a career changer, and we've got some future trainees who will be joining us as career changers. And what I would say to you is, you have lots of valuable skills that you have from your previous career, different roles or caring responsibilities, or whatever you've done in your career. You will have lots of skills that will be relevant to the role of a trainee solicitor. So, you know, please do just bring those out in your application. That would be my biggest advice for those of you that are at that stage of your career. I'm mindful of time, and I appreciate we've got lots of questions coming in, so I do apologise if we don't get a chance to answer your question. So I'm going to go to one final question actually, which I'm going to ask each of our guest speakers today, and then I will summarise and close the event and tell you, if you haven't had your question answers, hopefully where we can point you in the right direction. And the question I'm going to ask everybody is, what is something that you wish you had known before joining Owen Mitchell? So I'm going to go first. We'll come to the trainees, then to the NQs, and then we'll finish on Guy as partner. So Curtis, could you provide your answer on that question?
Yes, that's a good question actually. There's quite a lot of things that I wish I would have known, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be that when joining a firm and when starting a training contract generally, not to have expectations of what you're going to do. So I think Darina mentioned it earlier as well. Don't join a firm expecting that you'll be a property lawyer, for example. You need to have an open mind, and you'll experience a lot of different things in the training contract. And if you're open-minded, having no expectations as to what you'll end up specialising in, I think you'll get the most out of your training contract at the firm.
Darina, if we come to you next, and then we'll go on to Greg, and then to him.
Yeah, I think similar. Like I think that there are a lot of things that you sort of don't know, and the one thing that I wish I'd known is that it's okay to sort of not know things. So you know, a lot of people are kind of afraid of, oh, what might happen, or what am I doing things right? But I think it's just a normal feeling, and as long as you kind of work on the feedback and kind of progress, then that's all you can do. You know, I did know that this was the firm for me from getting to know people, and I knew the people were right, and you know, the company's made out of people, so if I can get on with them and learn from them, then that's all I want. And when I joined, I think that just kind of confirmed my belief. So yeah, just be open-minded, ask questions, grow. It's okay not to know everything as soon as you join in, and I think what I've learned is that even at a partner level, people still learn throughout their career. So it's not that as soon as you kind of qualify, you know everything. It's a continuous development, and that's kind of my key advice to everyone.
Thanks, Dorina. Greg?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's quite hard to answer on the spot, but I mean, when I joined, there was a lot I didn't know because I'd not worked in an office before, let alone a law firm for any extended period of time. But I guess probably what I wish I'd have known was not to worry about anything like that, and just how much a good attitude, enthusiasm for any task that comes your way, and just sort of a general curiosity about the job, how far all of that gets you, and everyone else is sort of supportive about the other things, and you pick it up quite quickly. So yeah, just having a good attitude and how important that is.
Hey, and anything to add in addition to what everybody else has said?
I think, for example, I remember when I first started and then maybe drafting a letter, and I was like, oh no, there's a typo and things like that. And I think it's very easy to kind of overthink and wonder, am I the perfect trainee? Will I be okay? You know, and it's good not to panic and just to realise that everyone at some point has, you know, it's part of the learning process. If you make mistakes, that, you know, it's okay because no one's perfect, but it's about how you respond to those mistakes and how you find the resolution to it, and you know, communicating that effectively and looking at how to move forward and learn from it. So I would always just say, you know, take a deep breath, you're doing okay, and then just continue on and power forward.
Thanks, Hayden. And last but not least, Guy, anything else to finish off that question?
Just to say that I think when I started out, I had a preconceived view, an idea of what being a solicitor would be and what working in a law firm would be like. And that was based on, I don't know, based on conversations with friends at university or whatever. But I wish I'd thought a bit more about what it means and what the opportunities are. And I think that would have helped me plan a bit. Not that you can plan for everything, but I think it would have helped me just understand what's out there. So that would be my word of advice for all of you.
Thank you, Guy. And thank you all very much for your thoughts today. Thank you for attending, for those of you that have come along, and I apologise if you haven't had a chance to come to your questions. In terms of finding out more, we have a digital brochure on our website which has lots and lots of information to some of the questions that you have asked, so please feel free to have a read of that. We have also got some upcoming office insight evenings that are going to take place from the 9th to the 26th of November. So again, if you want to come along, get more opportunities to speak with some of our colleagues, you can register your place on our website. And last but not least, our final hot off the press today, our podcast session with our trainees and training principal will be going live this afternoon, and it's available on Apple Music, Spotify and Podbean. So if you want to have a listen to that, you can listen to it in your free time. Again, it may answer some of the questions that we've unfortunately not had chance to get to today. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and hopefully it has given you a good insight into the firm and who we are, and I wish you all to stay safe in the current period, and thank you very much for coming.